So I mean, it's no secret, spiders aren't really the friendliest folk, and I wasn't really gonna try my chances. Anyway, this is the Helios 44-2. Enjoy. Ooh. Now I think I've picked a bit of a terrible time to film this, but because there's heaps of trucks and stuff going by, and I just don't think it's a particularly good look. But anyway, here's the Helios 44-2. Get excited. Actually, you know what? I'm just gonna film it on the 44-2. I would go down a little bit softer, but it's a bit bright behind me, and I don't think it's a particularly good idea. Okay, so the bad about the Helios 44-2 is that it is kind of soft. That's going to be something that I think a few people have definitely talked about. And I mean, what do you expect? It's a really old Russian lens that stops down to f2. I mean, you paid, lots of people pay different amounts of money for these. I definitely overpaid for mine, but it's generally a pretty cheap lens. There's only so much you can really expect out of it. If you do want sharpness out of it, you really do need to go to about f4. I'm at 5.6 at the moment, and that's going to give you a bit more sharpness that I think is what you're looking for. The next part about this lens that I would consider to be a negative is that the swirly bokeh, as cool as it is and as much of a good reason it is to buy this lens, it can be a bit distracting. And I found that particularly when I've gone shooting a few times, that I've just kind of thought, I kind of wish that I could turn it down a little bit. And thankfully you can. And you can kind of adjust a little bit so you don't get that effect. But it is just something to think about, because I know that I definitely, when I got the lens, I was like so excited, because I was like, yeah, swirly bokeh on all the things, all the photos. And then I got around to it and I was like, oh, it's a bit distracting. and yeah, so that's something definitely to think about as well. Another thing is no autofocus, which is something that I am really hating right now, because if I lean any way too back, wow, any amount too far back or forth, I'm going to be out of focus. I probably am out of focus. I tried my best. It's an A7 III and it doesn't have the tilty out of flippy screen, and that really annoys me, but we move on. We're going to be okay. It's fine. The next thing is going to be the dark corners. With a lens, it's the same with the softness. With a lens that's this old, at this price point, dark corners are really just, it's gonna happen. You're gonna get some vignette, and you just kind of deal with it. It's fine. You can kind of edit it out. Particularly if you go into Lightroom, you can kind of set it up and you can kind of get rid of your dark edges. So it's not the biggest issue. I guess it's just if you're someone who maybe shoots on film and you find it a bit of a pain in the ass to get rid of the vignette, which I have no idea if that is easy or hard. I don't shoot film. That's obviously another downside of the lens. Now, the final thing that kind of annoyed me about ownership is that the swirly bokeh, it's something that you're so excited for, and it really takes a bit of finessing to do. And now I brought this up when it comes to it being distracting. It's kind of good that you can kind of adjust how much swirly bokeh you get. But you really need to be at kind of like a sweet spot distance at a sweet spot aperture. And it does make it a bit annoying, because I know that I personally, when I bought the lens, I was kind of hoping that I just thought that, you kind of just take the photo and it just automatically is there. And it's not. And that does take a bit of work to get it if you do want it. Now, onto the good things. So the lens, yes, okay, it's kind of soft. But this does lend, I think, to a bit of a it does lend itself to a bit more of a dreamy look. And I really enjoyed this. I work with Machines and Macchiatos, which is like a North Sydney based classic car, almost like Cars and Coffee basically. And I really liked that it had more of like a dreamy type feel, which I think matched the vintage cars and that sort of thing quite nicely. It sort of gave it a bit of a nostalgic feel, because I was doing video for them. And it was just nice to be able to have that straight out of camera. Now definitely, by having it straight out of camera, you are losing a bit of flexibility. You could just do it in post. But I think for the most authentic look, it is better to get it out of camera. Next good thing is pretty obvious. I mean, it's cheap. You're not going to worry about if you damage it or break it. I mean, you can kind of just go on eBay, grab another one. It's really not the end of the world. And I think that does make it a really fun lens to shoot with, because you're not worrying about like, oh God, am I gonna like damage in my backpack? You know, it's really not the end of the world. And I know definitely, you know, it was something that's a bit more expensive. Like I've got Sigma 14-24 art here. You really do worry about it. And I think it is nice to kind of just have that peace of mind, especially if you're shooting on a budget, where really every dollar does count. This lens is such a great value proposition. If you're someone who doesn't have a lot of money to spend, this is probably something you're going to be picking up. So it's nice to have that peace of mind, knowing that you don't have to save up all this money and then worry about breaking it. Now, the next thing is obviously going to be the swirly bokeh. That's the thing that you bought it for. It's great. Once you can get it, it looks super just dreamy and magical. It looks great. And I think what is so cool about this lens is that it is very recognizable. There is a good community for it online. I don't know any specifically, but it is just very recognizable. And there's something nice about that sense of community around the lens. The next really good thing that I really loved about it is the fact that it's a really, really light lens. Even though it's made out of a composite of kind of metal and plastic, which actually makes it feel surprisingly premium, it's nice and light. And I think, as I'll go back to this, in comparison to something really, like into something nice, obviously a very different lens, the 14-24, but you know, these nicer lenses, even if you're comparing it to maybe the 50mm 1.8, from Sigma, there's a lot more heft in these lenses, and when you're using it on like a Sony mirrorless camera, it really does throw off the balance, and I think this lens really complements the camera very nicely. Now, the final thing about this lens that I'm not sure too many people talk about too much, or at least I didn't really know about, is how good it is distortion-wise. It's actually very clean, has very straight lines, there's very minimal distortion, and I think at this price point, I mean, it's kind of awesome. I think it really does sort of help emphasize this camera's position as a really good budget offering if you're looking to get a really nice big aperture, around 50mm full frame lens. Now, if you're looking to buy this sort of lens, there's a couple recommendations I have for you. So basically, if you're going to want to buy, if you're in Australia, I would really recommend looking on Gumtree. That's where I actually bought mine. And then look on eBay, look for auctions if you want the best price. I definitely appreciated buying locally, even though it meant that I did kind of overpay a decent amount. I got to choose which one I wanted, and there was a bit more flexibility with that. It came a lot faster. So I really would recommend that if you're local. Even try Facebook Marketplace. I think that's a great place to try. The next thing is that if you're shooting on an A7, make sure that it comes with the M42 to E-mount adapter. I actually didn't realize, I don't know why I didn't realize, I really should have realized, you will need an adapter to make this lens work on your camera. You just need to make sure that when you're looking at the prices, you need to see if it just comes with the adapter or not. Mine did, and it definitely saved me a bit of money. Well, not really, it was just kind of put into the price, and that's probably why I overpaid. But yeah, so this is my thoughts on the Helios 44-2. I really highly recommend it. It's a great value lens. If you're looking for a value option, honestly, there's nothing else I'd really recommend. So go out, get one, and enjoy it. Also, make sure to check out my website down below. You can sort of check out what I do for work, what sort of photography I focus on, and I'd really appreciate you guys go give it a visit. So yep, anyway, I'll see you in the next video. I hope this was really informative, and yeah, see you later.